Hey everybody, well, welcome back. We are here for our next episode of 6 Feet Under Exhumed. I am Kari the Mortician.
I'm Faith, that mortuary professor. This is season 2, episode 12, which is called I'll Take You. Sorry, I have to look at my little notes
I'll
over here.
take
I'll take you.
you.
And so, she, this little old lady's at the hairdresser.
Well, and it starts, we're at this hair salon, and it's one of those episodes where I'm like,
Yep.
who's it gonna be? Because they're focusing on this hair salon guy who has this long, wafty hair, and he's doing all of these. I don't know if they're all getting ready for like a quinceañera or something.
Yeah.
Very like bouffant dresses and big old hair of all these like younger
Yep.
girls. And so you're like, who's it gonna
I
be?
thought somebody's gonna roll in and rob him or something, and
Yes, who knows? It's
yeah.
I love the waiting to see who's it gonna be.
And sometimes it's just nothing, and then other times it's totally well. This little old lady is she's under the thing, right? The hair
Dryer,
dryer.
yeah.
I used to be so scared of those when I was a kid. And I think they're cool now, but they used to terrify me. I just didn't, oh, I don't know what it was. But anyway, and she just like dies under the hair dryer, which is fine. I mean, it's
Heat's
easy, I
bad
guess.
though. Heat is bad for death. That's all I could think is how long was she dead under that hair dryer?
Well, not that long, thank God. But yeah, I mean,
Because that's
but I
bad,
mean, she could have been an hour,
which is
depending on
not
how long she
good.
was supposed to be under there.
I had a lady once, she had died in her bed.
Yeah.
She had not been feeling good. She'd been thrown up the night before. So they put her in a little bed and they tucked, I mean, she had blankets and heating pads, and it was middle of June. It was hot outside, but she was all bundled up because she wasn't feeling good. Her husband went outside to go like just work in the yard for a little bit, came back and she was dead. Well, she had been under all these blankets. She had skin slip
Oh no.
because what happens, your body heats up and your body
Yes.
temperature and it heats, and your
Postmortem caloricity.
your
Can be fun to
tissue
know.
layers separate out, and so
Yep.
skin slipping is literally your tissue coming away from the other tissue on your body, and it just that heat amplifies it. And so
Yes.
I was like, oh my gosh, I had her within a few hours of when she died. And I was like, I don't understand what's going on. I'm talking like her face, everything. I was just like, I had to sit down with the family and say, listen, I'm doing everything I can, but because her body heat was so hot, like I'm working against it. But I mean, she was fine for viewing and stuff. I had to do some it was the craziest banana thing. No idea. But anyway,
I had that. I mean, I've had just one time where it was something I didn't expect. It was a young woman who died. She was found at home. I don't know. She wasn't dead very long. Like they found her the same day. She wasn't days or anything like that. And but she decomposed literally overnight in the cooler to something I've never, it's just I couldn't understand it. I
was
truly
it
did
tissue
not
gas?
know.
Yes,
It
it's
wasn't. And
crazy.
so but it was like I've never seen anything like that before or since. She literally went from like, I mean, she was autopsied,
Mm,
which, that it doesn't cause tissue gas, but it lets it get in places where maybe it shouldn't if it exists.
yeah.
Sometimes, not always. Um, and she was fine. And then the next day, it was like unrecognizable, just overnight.
Crazy.
Well, what it ended up being, and like I had to explain this to the family, and I had no explanation for it. So basically, what I said, decomposition is by my usual things, it happens when proteins in the body, but all these things. And I said generally you see this, accelerated decomposition in people that have some kind of protein loss of protein or whatever for some reason. And they go, oh, she died of bulimia.
Uh-oh.
And so then I called the coroner and we were talking because that coroner was a medical examiner, was a doctor. We're talking and I was like, I've just never seen anything like this. And he was like, no, I mean, that makes sense because if your body, if, decomposition is your literally your protein chains breaking down, and your body breaks down. And if a person, like a person that's on chemo for a long time or a person severely bulimic, they already have such a low protein in their body that when they die, they just decompose so much more rapidly because they're already lacking those parts that hold the body together.
Yeah.
And I never in my life considered that, being a severe bulimic could result in such rapid decomposition like that. But now I know.
Yeah, and people who have done like chemo and things, it's such a different texture.
It is.
To me, it's almost like a squishy.
Yeah.
Is that
No,
decent?
I know.
It's soft, much softer tissue
Mhm.
than like you or I have.
Mhm.
I've also seen that advanced if with the heat, had a girl, she overdosed in the bathroom, ended up laying on the heat vent overnight. And so she had not been dead for that long, but because she laid with this heat blasting on her abdomen,
Oh
oh, it was
man.
bad. Oh, her condition was very bad. She was heavy makeup, heavy everything. We were able to have an open casket, but her, like, don't touch her, don't breathe on her, don't get near her because the makeup is barely staying, like,
Yeah.
very tough situation. But heat amplifies, these conditions amplify. So there's things that we work up against. It's not a bad embalming, we can't control what happens to a body. We're not magic workers and
Well, we have
when
to
it comes.
remember, we're designed to break down when we're dead.
Yes.
And
Yep.
sometimes the conditions accelerate that. And it is not a so there's Facebook groups and stuff like that. And one of them is Ask the Embalmer or whatever that I'm on. And some of the questions people ask, and it's not no fault of a layperson, they don't know. But there are, well, my so and so looked bad. What did the embalmer do wrong? And it's like probably nothing. There's probably
Right.
just all these circumstances that if you really knew all the information would make sense.
Right.
But a person that just, goes up and views their uncle and they don't look good, they go, well, the funeral home did a bad job. And it's like, no, they probably did the very best job that could have been done
Right.
with all these circumstances. And there's so much that goes into that process that is, and you can embalm two bodies the exact same way and get completely different results based on what's
Yep.
going on intrinsically. So there's just so
Well,
much.
they didn't see them how they looked when they died, so they don't
Yeah.
know the improvement that was
Well, that's
possibly
part of, gosh,
created.
that's one of the
And that's
hardest parts
hard
too.
because
In what
people,
we do is they don't know what we started with. So
oh,
they only see the end result, which is it's never the same as how the person looks alive, because guess what? They're not alive.
yeah,
And I can do the very best job I've ever done in my career, and a family's still going to come in and they may be relieved that they don't look bad, but they've never seen the person dead before. They've never seen, you
right.
know what I mean? And
Yep.
so the best, and I have had many families, say that they look great and they were very pleased, and that always makes you feel good. But you also have to remember, as an embalmer, like, they don't know what we're working with, and you can't, I mean, they're dead, right? So it doesn't, like,
They're never gonna
I
look
don't know
like
how to explain
the,
it, but it's
yeah.
like, even my dad, I mean, he didn't look alive. He was dead. He
Yeah,
looked
they're not
fine,
working
but
with us. They're working against what we're trying to
yeah,
do.
there you
So
go, there you
we're,
go.
great Aunt Betty isn't trying to help us make her look great. We're doing the best we can with what is in front of us. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
not always, yes, sometimes there are bad embalming. Yes,
sure.
sometimes there are bad cosmetic jobs. Yes, sometimes, but it is not across the board that someone did something wrong just because someone doesn't look great. But so let's get back to Leticia. So Leticia is our deceased, and we see Rico standing over her in the embalming room, with her on the table. And Dave comes in and is like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "This is my abuela, my
Yeah,
grandma." And he's like, "This is your grandma?" He goes, "No, that's what we just all called her." So come to find out, this woman had lived next door across the street from Vanessa and Rico for a long time. And they had gone and cleaned her gutters and had made her food and had kind of just been very kind to her when her family wasn't coming around really. And so he knew her and had done her prearrangement with her. So it creates this, you think, oh, it's nice that he helped and he was there and stuff. But then we kind of find out later her son comes in, who's this fancy pants
yeah.
doctor, and oh, I want to upgrade everything and I want to do this. And Rico's like, no, this is what she picked. She wants this casket. And they kind of get in this fight, and Dave's like, well, by law, we have to do what she wanted. And he goes, I don't even know if that is law later, kind of thing. But the
It's
son was,
mercy and burial, but
yeah, I think that the son was trying to make up for guilt of not
sure.
being around, because he would only call his mom every other Sunday or something like that. And she would sit around the house waiting for this phone call, and it may come, it may not come. And so he wasn't really present for her. And he hates that Rico kind of knew her. And so they get into this big thing together. And um, yeah, so it's kind of this, play out throughout the episode, but
She was not positioned well in her casket either. Did you notice
no,
that?
she wasn't as perfectly perfect as she could have been.
She was like
But
kind of stargazing a little bit, and it was like just a weird, like she's way too low on the pillow. And
yeah, because they show her, so like fast forward and they get to this funeral or visitation, and prior to this, Rico and Vanessa had been called into this estate planner person, and they're like, hey, um, Leticia had left you money and had left them like $150,000 essentially, which is a large sum of money. It was her life savings, her life's
yeah,
work, as her son says. So then at the funeral home, the son comes up to Rico and is like, what did you do? Like,
yeah,
did you get my mom to sign you this money and give you her money? Like, what did you do for this? And he's like, I didn't do anything. I'm surprised. And he kind of lets it go. I'm surprised that he lets it go as easily, but we
yeah,
want the story to play out for forever. But then you have them standing up at the casket with her in the casket in the scene, and Rico's tucking pictures of his kids into the casket with her, and the son is, kind of finicking over her and stuff. And there's this nice moment where they're there, but um, I just don't want people standing looking at me like that. I just thinking of that is kind of weird. And I think that's why a lot of people will just cremate me so nobody has to do that. Don't you think?
oh, sure.
I think that's to know like you can't do anything about how you look or who's looking at you, and that people are like standing there. I think that's almost like a phobia moment for a lot of people that,
I think it's weird if you really think about it that we just go around and stare at dead people and dress them up and let everybody come and look at them. I mean, I, and I think that people are uncomfortable doing it, and so they don't want to do it themselves. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I think,
I'm comfortable going and doing that. So I don't want anybody else to have to
yeah,
be comfortable coming and looking at me
yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah,
But
that's what I mean when I say like in other
yeah,
episodes we can't assume that we know what's best for families, and there is this kind of idea within traditional white people funeral service, and not even white people, but traditional American funeral service, I guess, that viewing the body is what's best. But I don't believe that. I think it can be, but I don't think it inherently is. And I think
yeah.
that it if it were, I think everybody would want it, and most people don't, in fact, which is interesting. But no, I mean, I think it is. That's what it is. I think it makes people uncomfortable to do it, and so they don't want to perpetuate that on other people.
We see in this episode too, sticking with kind of the Rico stuff, he is flashing back to how he got in the business. So
This is the episode, yeah.
we get to find out his why and why he's in the
Yeah.
business. And his father had fallen off a roof and died. And so you see him and his mom meeting with Nathaniel to plan this funeral, and like he looked terrible. So no, we can't. There's nothing you can do. And Nathaniel's like, it'll be okay. Like he wasn't phased. He's so calm as a funeral director, which I love. And so it's just kind of cool to see Rico's story and then him showing up for his dad's funeral and seeing how he looked.
Yeah.
And I think that's the moment he realized this is what I want to do. So then he does the whole comes by the funeral home and, hey, can I help rake the leaves? Hey, can I help do this? And that's how a lot of people get their start is I'm going to mow the yard when I'm 15, or I'm going to, answer phones when I'm young and go to work at the funeral home. And then you just kind of grow up in the funeral home. And that's
Yeah.
how a lot of people got their start working in the funeral home, that when it wasn't your family's business.
Yeah.
You see how long Rico's been around this funeral home
Yeah.
through that story and kind of his why, which I love.
Yeah, I love that. That was a part of the episode that made me cry, actually. Just when he
Oh,
goes up to the casket and like Rico turns around, he just has this look of absolute like awe and respect for Mr. Fisher, who's just
yeah.
standing in the back, like, that's just, but it is cool to see that, that how meaningful that can be for people. And, just kind of to see somebody appreciate it, I guess, was cool. Because you don't see, I don't think
Yeah.
people, I think people appreciate it, but they don't express it that much, or at least that way. But just the way that he was so in awe of what he
His
was able to
skills, his
do.
talents
Yeah,
kind of
that's what
thing.
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was really cool to see, that was a pivotal like life moment for him to be able to see that. So and it was, yeah, it was interesting to see Nathaniel Fisher as a funeral director, because I don't think before this we ever really saw those
No,
flashbacks of him actually talking to a family or anything like
no,
that.
it's just more prep room,
Hmm.
with moments with Dave and stuff.
Yeah.
More of that. So on the Dave storyline, well, Keith more or less. This is the episode I kind of jumped forward last
Okay.
week when we talked because he was clear to the shooting and Taylor's living with them, and then he ends up, he gets the call that it's cleared, and um it's great because that has happened. And then later other things happen. So I had kind of jumped ahead with that whole storyline, but that's okay.
It's all right. So Nate is visiting this Aaron guy that he wrote the pre-need with,
Yeah.
and it's kind of sad. He goes there and he dies, and I mean, I don't know, maybe it happens like that. It just seemed to me like,
No, he didn't die in this one. He didn't die in this one.
oh, well, sorry.
Jeez. No.
We're bad at this. Well,
No. But he goes and visits him and they
goes
talk
visiting.
more, and he talks about love and being in love and how
That's what it is.
he
Yeah.
always is with somebody for like, a period of time, a year or two, and then kind of gets antsy. And
Yeah.
it
It's
doesn't
like
mean
looking
that
for
the
something back.
relationship's bad, but he kind of gets antsy and stuff and then leaves. And so you see kind of Nate connecting with him more on that level too, like not just being with somebody. And he goes, that's not how it's supposed to be though. Like you choose somebody and that's who you're with and you make it work and you go the long distance. He goes, you don't just get antsy after a while and just move on to somebody else. Like that's not how it's supposed to be. And he gets really stirred about, I think, the fact that he never had his somebody.
Yeah.
And that now it's too late. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just sad. That
It
whole
is sad, but I mean, it's true. A lot of people are that way, and I think that like there's a lot of like articles and stuff about how like online dating has made that so much worse,
yeah.
because you could literally get on your phone at any time and find somebody more attractive than who you're with, or somebody
Or a
that's more
hookup or
pretty or
whatever you
has
want to
or
find.
whatever
I
you
mean, it's,
want.
yeah.
That's fine. And I guess everybody's got problems. Like it's just going to be a different. That's what I've said to Cece so many times. I'm like, there'd just be a new set of drama and crap. So it's like, I don't know. Do you want the crap you're used to, or do you want to just have
Yeah.
to, because you'll discover new crap with somebody else,
Yeah. Well,
But no, I think, some people are just like that. They always think there's something better or something more, whatever. And, maybe somebody's more attractive and maybe they're stupider than the person you're with, or maybe they're like just less, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
yeah,
It's a weird thing.
there doesn't have to be a reason sometimes,
Yeah, there doesn't.
you know? Well, this is the episode, or this school counselor gets let go.
Yep.
And so I think Claire's super sad about it because she goes to visit the art school that he had recommended to her mom to go,
Hmm.
said, hey, I think Claire needs to go visit. And she went and visited and just felt so at home. And
Yeah.
I loved when she goes to get in her car to leave, which is a hearse, and it's parked next to another hearse. And so
Yeah.
kind of like, I found my people. I need to go to the school. And she's all
Right.
excited and goes to tell him. And then finally realizes he's got like packing boxes in
Yeah.
front of him. And he's been let go, not because he did anything wrong. They're cutting back or whatever it is. And so, yeah, it's just it. And he's leaving. And so that's kind of the end of it for now, which I just expected more, but I guess we'll see if maybe he comes back around. Um, Claire does some photos. She knows that she has to apply to this school and she needs a portfolio, and she does photos of herself at the funeral home in front of like this cool KG. I don't know if it looks like what an elevator, like an old school elevator
Yeah.
would be kind of
It is,
thing.
I think. I think it's the elevator.
So she does these beautiful pictures of herself and is just kind of working towards something now. She's like really excited, and it's kind of
Yeah.
fun to see her positive and on the right track. And then we've got, gosh, Ruth. God bless Ruth and Nikolai and her methodical, like, you're barely dating at this point, Ruth, like barely
Yeah.
dating. And she goes, well, so I have figured that every other day, if we spend the night together or do
That's
something, but then it only lands on Saturdays, every other Saturday. And Saturday's really the day we should be together. So maybe we should just set a precedent of like 3 or 4 days a week that we do. And he's like, okay, Ruth, that's fine, Ruth. And then it's like, oh, he's just feeling like now he has to because she gave all this money to the guy,
yeah.
which is crazy. And so they kind of have this build up to this end, and they go to the movies. Like, how did you feel about them going to, like, this is just,
Going to separate movies?
yeah, he goes, you go to that movie, I'm going to my movie. That sounds good.
I love going to the movies by myself.
I
I'm
do
fine with
too.
that.
I do
I'll do
too.
anything by myself. I don't care. I like to be alone. But I mean, I don't know if he was a little too happy to get away from her.
I just
And it's
like,
just like,
how
is she
does
not like picking up on any of
I
this? Like she
know.
just
Is she really that blind to it? And I feel bad for
apparently,
her, but then I can't feel bad for her because come on, Ruth, the man barely
well,
wants to be around you. So why are you doing this? But
I
so
don't know. But
she breaks up with him in the movie theater. And I think it's cute. She comes out with her popcorn and her thing. She goes trudging over to she sits down in his movie theater and like breaks up with him. And then instead of leaving, she goes back to her movie, which I'm like,
maybe she wanted to see the movie. I don't know. I mean, mm,
I was just like, just get out of there, girl. Just blow him off. Go get a cocktail or something. Like,
the end of the episode irritated me a little bit because I
um,
don't like Lisa.
oh, well, let's talk. So Brenda,
Oh yeah,
let's talk about the Brenda and then we'll
yep,
move
yep,
to
yep.
Lisa. So Brenda's parents have this recommitment thing. And first of all, she's talking to her mom about her mom and dad's new connection and like their love and their marriage. And Brenda's like, well, Nate and I have this special thing. You're not the only one that has a special thing. We all know that's BS. But, her mom has kind of found this good place with her dad after all these
Yeah,
years of cheating and all that stuff. And so they have this ceremony and Billy's there and he's like, isn't this beautiful? And Nate gets a little choked up and he thinks it's beautiful. And Brenda's the like snarky, negative drudgery. It's just so ugly how she has to turn everything so bad. And Billy's like, I'm not doing that with you, Brenda. I want better for myself. I have
yeah,
outlook on life. Like I'm in a good place.
yep,
You got to figure your shit out, basically.
yep.
And I kudos to him. Like she's, ugh.
I like Billy. I mean, I think Billy. Well, first of all, I just think he's a really well written character,
Yes.
and I think the actor's fantastic. But I think when Billy's stable, he's normal, and he's
Good.
got yeah. I mean, kind of, but I mean, I think he. You can be a broken clock and be right, right? So he's like
Twice a day. Yeah.
twice a day, so he's right. on that. And you know, so where are they at? They're just chilling outside her house, isn't it?
Oh, they're sitting outside the house and the
Yeah.
teenage boy comes back by and he's like, "Hey, I didn't catch your name last time." And Nate kind of has this recollection moment because he's been reading some of her book.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Where do you come up with this?" She's like, "I don't know. I just come up with this stuff." And there had been a surfer guy moment where, and he goes, "This isn't made up. This is true, isn't it?" And so they kind of finally have it out, which thank God. Like, how long can this
Right.
go on?
Yeah, so they break
Oh.
up. Nate like tosses his ring, which is funny.
Yeah, she goes,
And
"Don't be so cliche that you're going to toss the ring at me." And he's like,
yeah. Yep. Yeah. And so they break up and I mean,
"Good."
good, right? You
Finally.
know, I don't care for her and I don't, right. And at this point, you know, if you have not watched the whole series, you might be relieved, but then you see Lisa and then, you know, I don't like her either.
Yeah.
I just don't like any of these options for Nate in this whole series, except for one, but that one hasn't come yet. But it's like, um, so Lisa calls the funeral home and Ruth answers.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, hi, it's Lisa, Belle from Seattle," and da da da. And Ruth is like, and so they have a little conversation, and Lisa realizes that Nate has told Ruth nothing about Lisa being there, being
No.
pregnant, or any of this. And so she tells Ruth that she was pregnant by Nate and just had the baby a couple weeks early, which I don't know. I don't know that I would probably not do that. I might just
I think
tell
it's
dad
ballsy. Like,
first.
so ballsy that you would have ask him to give up his rights and then call his mother and say,
Yeah.
"You're a grandma." And she's like, "No, I'm not." And she goes, "I just had Nate's baby." Like, come, that is some balls on you to do that.
That's what I mean. I mean, I would probably tell the dad if he wasn't home, I would probably wait to talk to him first before
I
I just
don't feel like she was even trying to call
Mom.
Nate, though. I think
No,
she
you're
was
probably right.
purposely trying to call Ruth. Like, she is a manipulator, I
She is.
think. And
She is a
so,
manipulator. She's just does it differently than Brenda. I don't like Lisa. I don't like Brenda either, but I don't like Lisa. I really don't. Because I just don't like how she talks. That's really the main. I don't like the character, but I just don't like the actress and how she whisper talks the whole time. Just makes me crazy. But so Ruth goes over to see the baby. Now, listen, this baby was supposedly born weeks early and is a newborn. This thing is
very
6 months.
hardy baby.
This
Like
is a
a
six
hardy.
month old baby that they're using. I mean, if you
Yeah.
have never seen a newborn, and especially one that's early, they are not this. They're like this. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And like, I mean, I was even does like Facebook memories, and it sent me a picture of Helena this morning from like 9 years ago when she would have been 20 days old. And she's like, she was early. She was a month early, and she was like this big. So this baby is supposedly just born a couple of weeks early, and it's like basically can sit up. So this is not what a newborn premature baby size is whatsoever. But they probably can only use babies that have to be a certain age to be in movies. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that surprised me. I was
Baby's
like,
name
oh,
is Maya.
your name is Maya.
New Maya is there.
And yeah, and Ruth is just being a grandma. I think Ruth is shocked, obviously. And
Yeah.
just goes over there.
And then Keith beats a guy up. And so he
Yep.
calls Dave and says, "I'm going to be late." And yeah, then that just kind of ends. He doesn't know what's going on. And so I jumped way ahead on that storyline last week.
No,
I'm sorry,
that's
guys.
okay.
I'm
That's all
terrible.
right.
But then Nate's
Yeah.
back visiting Aaron, and just
Yep.
sitting with him. And he gets a call from Dave.
Yep.
And Dave
Owner
says,
is filing bankruptcy.
filing for bankruptcy. So we're like, I'm gonna be kind of sad that the Kroner storyline is gone. So we'll see how that, if it comes back around and plays out, how it does. Because it's like, man, it was kind of like this, the adversary, like, and now if there's none on the business side, then what's gonna happen? So it'll be
Right.
interesting what happens with all that. So yeah, we close out this episode We got the new baby. Keith beat someone up. Kroner filed for bankruptcy. We've got Aaron almost dying. Like a lot is happening here to close this episode out.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. Last episode of season 2 next week. So post your comments below about this episode and we will check you guys out next week.
Bye.